Want to learn about some games you might have missed? More importantly, want to learn about them quickly? If so, I'm your man. Welcome to the 1 Minute Rundown. I'm OC Trinity, your host, and like the other real men and women out there, I use items. This time we're running down Super Smash Bros. It's certainly not the first crossover fighting game out there, but it's certainly the one that set the stage for the others after it. Instead of traditional fighting games, this one mixed in a lot of platforming elements, including stage hazards and randomly spawning items and power-ups. Instead of damaging the other character fast enough, you had to knock them out of bounds, and it used a very simple control scheme to make it easily accessible, yet have enough depth for more experienced gamers. The series has appeared once on every home console since the Nintendo 64, and thus has 3 games for it that we'll be reviewing this episode. Which ones are still worth checking out? I've heard this actually started development as an experimental game, but given how the series went from here, it looks like Nintendo knew exactly what they wanted to do with this game, as pretty much every aspect of it made it into the sequel except one bonus game, or the platforms. Unfortunately, though, it also means I can't really give this a high score because pretty much everything this game did, another game did better. If you got started later in the series, you'll find this game is missing one special move, sidestepping, any sort of aerial defense, levels with more than one gimmick, and for that matter, levels with less than one gimmick, any single-player campaign beyond the standard arcade mode, any sort of trophies or other collectibles, and obviously, most of the characters. Granted, the 12 characters we do get are probably among the best they could have picked at the time, and each one managed to feel different enough, except maybe Mario and Luigi. As for everything else though, there aren't many complaints except maybe that throws, the one move that can't be blocked, are a bit too powerful. Sure, the game's fun, but if you have either of the other games in the series, I can't see any reason to go back to this one except for nostalgia, to see how far the games have come. So as you can probably tell from a minute ago, this is one of those rare moments where a game manages to improve on its predecessor in every way possible. Right away you'll notice that the character roster has doubled, and while I could take issue with 6 of the 25 characters being clones with pretty subtle differences, it doesn't change that there is enough variation with the characters to keep things interesting. And as you've noticed from a minute ago, we've added a 4th special move, a few new defensive moves, and a lot more variety in the level design. The game feels a lot more fast-paced, yet still completely approachable to pretty much anyone. And if you're by yourself, there's a lot of single-player content, mostly in the form of some bonus games and event matches. And while it's not gameplay-related, the fact that they throw in trophies with random Nintendo lore and history is a nice touch. I do have one major complaint about the game, and that's that the character balance has some issues. Even putting aside the whole clone characters thing, there's quite a few characters that after a decent amount of playing seem like they're never worth using. But other than that, I really can't find much for fault here. Definitely recommended. I know a decent number of tournament-style Smash Bros. Players, and the general consensus is that this isn't a good game, mostly due to the slower, floatier feel and a random tripping mechanic. Well, sure, tripping I'm not going to defend, but no, I don't agree with you guys. For one, character variation seems even better with more characters and fewer clones, and while the balance still isn't perfect, it does have a lot more characters that can stay competitive. Single-player mode expands again, this time including a full adventure mode whose storyline seems a bit thrown together, but the gameplay is surprisingly deep and fun. And of course there's Final Smashes, an extremely powerful attack that requires a rare item to unleash, essentially this game's equivalent of super moves. Sure, they're strong, but getting one involves breaking a floating ball that moves between players fast enough that getting to use one in the first place is a feat in itself, so it's not at all an instant win button. All things considered, this is one of those rare circumstances, at least in the world of fighting games, where it's not a replacement of the original, but instead has enough differences that both games are about equally good and both remain worth playing. Before wrapping up, I'm going to break away from my usual form to discuss one more related topic, and that's the tournament style of this game. For anyone unaware, the tournament style involves eliminating as much random chance out of the game. In short, items are eliminated, and there's maybe 4 or 5 stages that are indisputably allowed, and it's a one-on-one match. Now, if you're trying to keep things fair and balanced for both sides, I agree with that. The problem I have with it is that you're getting a little too far away from how Smash Bros. Is meant to be played. To throw out a similar example, Mario Kart's a pretty random game, but if you stripped away item boxes, you'd be left with just another racing game without much left. Same idea here. The game's meant to be random, and adapting to a changing situation is part of the strategy. And in some cases, items were meant to be part of the character balance to begin with. Smash Balls and special moves that deal with items probably being the best examples of that. But I think what sets me off about the tournament scene is the attitude I've seen of some tournament-style smashers that this is the only acceptable way to play this game. Really guys, this game doesn't need to always be serious business, and not every match has to be Fox only, Final Destination, no items. My personal preference is to put items on low, with some of the cheaper ones turned off, but I'm not going to force that down anyone's throat. Just enjoy the game, on whatever terms work for you and your friends. That's my take on the Smash Bros. Series. The 3 games you saw are the only games in the series so far, but the next games have already been announced for both the 3DS and the Wii U. We don't know anything about them yet, but that hasn't stopped people from coming up with wish lists on who they think will show up. And to join in, here's a few characters I'm hoping for. On a related note, Sony seems to have a similar crossover fighting game coming out in the near future as well. But until we see those, if you think you might like these games, by all means check them out. All of these were greatest hits games, and one is on the Virtual Console, so none of them should be that hard to find. And check back in 2 weeks for the next episode of 1 Minute Rundown. Brawl had 35 playable characters, which is a pretty high number. Next, I'll show you a series that puts that number to shame. See you then, and remember, keep on smashing, brother.